right, Alicia. We are on the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ross, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you guys for coming in and paying attention to us one more again. One more again. Tonight's uh tonight I have with me Miss Alicia Caldwell. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Before we get going, Alicia, can you tell me just what it is that you do?
Yes. Like you mentioned, I'm Alicia Caldwell. I'm the author of The Journey Back to Self. I'm a licensed professional counselor of 20 plus years, and I'm a workplace mental health speaker. And I'm also the founder of Live Like Her. The Her stands for healthy, empowered, and resilient.
Hmm.
Those are my titles, but the most important roles in my life um, are being a wife,
Hmm.
a mother to two beautiful daughters, and a yaya to a gorgeous grandson. So at the end of this life,
Yeah.
what I want to be known for is the life that I have lived, loving those individuals.
Okay. Okay. Now, I know that during our initial conversation, Alicia, you focused quite a bit about your upbringing and how it shaped uh, how you move now as a therapist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you go into some detail and talk about how life was for you growing up?
Yeah, you just getting right into it. I
Oh
love
man,
it.
I get
Okay,
that knife and fork, man. Got the knife and fork, man.
let's get into it. Um, Most people, um, if you've heard me speak before, I talk openly and authentically about the challenges that I faced as a child, overcoming childhood trauma,
Mhm.
um, being raised without my father in my life, being raised by a mother who struggled with her own deeply rooted trauma, and experiencing my own mental and emotional challenges
Mhm.
because I didn't have the person that I am right now, a therapist or a confidant, a mentor, a coach, or someone that could help me to navigate the complicated emotions that I was experiencing in my youth. And as we know, trauma, it informs who we are and who we become. So
Mm.
as a young child, witnessing domestic violence and experiencing emotional neglect, it it was harmful in a variety of ways. First and foremost, my relationships, leading me to make some unhealthy decisions
Mm. Mhm.
in my
Yeah.
adolescent years as I was looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even as a young adult, trusting other people with, having my own like abandonment issues and things that even as a therapist, Mark, I didn't realize that it was affecting me as deeply as it was because as I share when I'm speaking to audiences, I had this faulty belief that I could educate my way out of childhood trauma. So many people in
Mhm.
my life had told me
Mm.
that,
Mhm.
hey, if you check off some boxes, then you'll be successful. Yes, you went through this, but if you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good job, you're a good person, you make good money, that you'll have a good life. But my life didn't roll out like that. I
Mm.
still had the lingering impact of the trauma that I experienced as a
Mm.
child, and I could not outrun it. I couldn't educate my way out of it. I couldn't fake my way out of it. But what I could do is heal. And that's what my book, The Journey Back to Self, is all about. It's
Man.
about my journey and the reader's opportunity to go on their own journey to finding greater inner peace, personal empowerment, and long lasting prosperity, which is not just about your bank account.
Mm,
It's about your mental account, your
mm,
emotional account, your relational account.
mm,
Those are the things that last. And if you can get those things in order,
mm.
the rest will come, because now you're showing up in life, career, and relationships as the greatest version of yourself. And that's where your power is truly unleashed.
You said a mouthful right there, sister. And during my time doing this podcast, I've heard the words generational trauma
Mm,
come up quite a bit. And we have to get to that place that we can admit, just like you did, like that, you know, despite me looking the part of being a successful person, am I truly a happy person?
yeah.
And if your answer is no, then you're on the road to being authentically you, because I would say that many of us aren't happy.
Mm,
We're not, because we haven't dealt with that back there, right? I mean, like you said, you tried to run from it and it caught up on you. When you wasn't looking, it caught up on you, right? It caught you slipping. So we have to deal with that. A lot of people don't deal with that. And a lot of people have a lot of that baggage that they're unconsciously tugging along. And they don't even know that they're doing it. You know, a lot of us, I in my interactions with people, that they tell me, man, all I knew was fighting, shooting, gambling, cussing, drinking, blah, blah, blah. Nobody sat down to tell them anything positive, because they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You know what I'm saying? And that generational trauma, or negative education, if you want to call it that, it continues, it perseveres. But we have to get into a place where we can say, hey, I'm not right. I don't care if I got the car. I don't care if I got the house. You know, I'm not right in here. And I won't grow. I will remain here stifled, right? Unless I do something about this, because I'm still hurting inside, and I just think that more people need to come to that, to get there, because I think a lot of people are still running. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think a lot of people, you know, they're we're running. We got to stop running, because our communities need to heal, our families need to heal, and we need to heal.
right. And I am just loving how you rolled all of that out, because I agree that we have to stop running from ourselves, right? It's not just running from the past.
Sure.
It's running from who we are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes there is shame, as you know,
Mm,
stigma,
mm-hmm.
self-judgment, and
Mm,
judgment from others
mm-hmm.
attached to us being open and honest about our struggles. I don't know what type of household you grew up in, but I know in my household, it wasn't celebrated to share about your emotions, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only emotions that were kind of valid and expressed was anger, right? So those emotions I witnessed,
Mm-hmm.
sadness, but typically it was connected with the alcoholism that was going on. So when there was alcohol involved, I would witness, maybe adults around me crying or having emotional breakdowns. But I didn't witness a healthy blueprint for how to manage emotions. But not only that, Mark, I was also told what goes on in the house stays in the house.
Mm-mm.
It
Come on
doesn't
now.
matter if it's harming you, you don't talk about it. You
Mm-mm.
don't heal from
Mm-mm.
it. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of that, I do hear and I get it when we're saying, we have to heal, we have to stop running from ourselves, but somebody has to go first. Someone has to set the blueprint because so many people, they aren't doing it because no one ever showed them how to do it. So we're asking people to do something that they have no blueprint for. And then we are criticizing them and judging them because they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
How can we know when no one has taught us, when no one has given us the kind of the red carpet and said, walk here and walk with me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going to tell you what to do. I'm going to walk with you while you do it. And I'm going to be authentic, open, honest about who I am, what I've struggled with. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
also going to give you the tools, the strategies, and the guidance that worked for me. And you take what you need because some of these things might work for you as you figure out your own journey.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm finding is we're doing a lot of you should do this, you should do this, you should heal, but we're not taking the time to help people to understand at the root what is it that they need to do first, second, third, and gently guide them on that journey because sometimes it is so overwhelming that we won't move because healing ain't pretty.
No,
It's
no.
hard. It's
Yeah,
challenging. It's
yeah.
painful. It's
Mm-hmm.
disruptive. It's not linear. It can be this tangled web of ups and downs. And if we don't have support, which so many people don't, if we don't have support, it can be even more difficult.
Mm-hmm. You said another mouthful. And you're right. You're right. You are absolutely right, Sister Alicia. Uh, my next question. Talk about the moment you had in your high school psych class in which it led you down the path to becoming involved in mental health.
Mhm.
You shared a good story with me.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about that again.
So in high school, I took an advanced placement psychology class, not knowing that it was going to be the catalyst for me to move into this zone of mental health and wellness.
Mhm.
But as I was taking that class and learning about abnormal psychology and learning about behavior patterns and learning about the mind, I was realizing that things that I had witnessed in my own family, dysfunctional behaviors,
Mm.
and my own mental and emotional difficulties were being described and played out in a book.
Ooh.
I had never heard anyone, not in my circles, and I'm sure, and this, I'm gonna kind of share my age. This was the 90s. So this is the 90s. So I know that
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it's trendy. Like people are talking about therapists. My therapist said this, my therapist said that. Back then, no one in my circle.
Mm-mm.
I don't think
Nope.
there wasn't one person in my circle talking about therapy. That
Mm-mm.
wasn't even a term that people in my community were talking about. So I
Nope.
was learning that not only were their names attached to these things like mental health diagnoses and things like that, mental illness, not only were their names attached to it, but there were things that could be done to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was the catalyst where I started thinking like, okay, so there's actually people out here who help people through their mental and emotional difficulties, that help people with family dysfunction.
Mm.
That's something I need to explore a little bit further.
Come on now.
And that's why once I, moved into the college arena, I got my bachelor's degree in psychology.
Mm.
That's why I moved in that direction. And once I realized, that's something I wanted to do long term and actually help people, I recognize I can't do that with a bachelor's degree. I got to go get a master's degree. And not only that, you got to be licensed to do
Right.
that. I didn't
Right.
know all the steps, but I knew that I wanted to help people and be to them what I needed someone to be to me. so that they wouldn't have to take as long a journey to get to the mental health and well-being that they desire, to get
Mm.
to the healing, health, and wholeness. And I just want it to be a part of that journey for people in whatever way I could.
Nice. How long have you been a therapist, Alicia?
And over 20 years now.
Wow. Okay.
Yep, over 20 years.
All right. And what is your target audience?
Yeah, so my target audience is high achieving professional women leaders. And I reach these women by going into organizations and talking about workplace mental health. So that is my area of specialty. And I hone that skill working with military populations for over 10 years. So
Mm,
going into that arena and helping active duty service members and their families navigate the difficulties of that lifestyle, the high ops tempo, the transitions, and all of the different things, the deployments. And I worked with the adults, the children. So that was something that I recognized that, again, being an active duty service member, it's still a career field. So you have to show up in your workspace ready to perform.
mm-hmm,
And again, sometimes being diagnosed with a mental illness can have an impact on your career.
mm-hmm,
And having someone that you could talk to before it gets to that level, that was something helpful that I could offer in that arena. And as I stepped out of that community and into the civilian population, I wanted to continue that trend of helping people in the workplace. Our mental health challenges don't stop because we clock in at work.
yeah,
They're still there.
yeah,
So instead of telling people like, yeah, you should go talk to a therapist, I'm hoping that more organizations start to recognize that you can bring these experts into the workplace, educate, equip, and empower your people so that they have wellness at their disposal right there in front of them versus saying, go talk to a therapist where they may or may not do something like that. It's just oftentimes it's less what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Stigmatizing, maybe, because when everybody's in the room listening to me talk about mental health and well-being, there's no one person that feels out of place because now everyone is there. And if I'm speaking directly to you, no one knows I'm speaking directly to you about your whatever I'm covering, because now it is a group commitment to come in and talk about mental health and well-being and normalize mental health, because we all have certain levels of stress and struggle at some point in life. If we're a human, we're
mm-hmm,
going to have certain levels of stress. And sometimes it's more difficult than others to figure out how to navigate it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You mentioned the word that really rung with me, and that's shame, especially in the 90s, uh, when I'm a veteran, and I would like for you to share your experiences of working with vets soon, later on, but I just want to talk about that shame part because I carried that badge of shame for many years after my tour duty in the military. It was 1991 when you talk about the 90s. So I got out in 91. I didn't start experiencing my PTSD symptoms till about 92, the spring of 92, I want to say in particular. And what you said about what goes on in the home stays in the home, and the shame part is, and the lack of concern for our mental well-being, especially then, it rang true. We just sucked that shit up, to be blunt. That's what we did. We sucked that up. You don't tell nobody that you're going through a mental crisis. You know what I mean? You just, hey, have a drink, smoke a J, do something, but don't sit back and complain about it. Just suck that shit up, you know. And that's what many of us had to deal with. And I can tell you that shame and and not being able to express myself to anybody, it hurt. It hurt. It really took me personally down a bad, that dark road of uh not caring about living or dying, drinking myself to sleep, damn near every day. I did just enough to function, you know, but I dealt with that shame tough. I had to carry that luggage of shame, Sister Alicia. I had to carry that tough. I had to smile when I didn't feel like it. You know, I had to say I'm okay when I know I'm not, because I didn't want everybody in my business. Because that's what I was raised to do. I was raised to, suck that shit up. You get cut, hey, suck that blood out, get some butter or something, rub it on it, keep it moving. That's just how I went down for our generation. You know what I mean? But I wish I could have encountered somebody like yourself, for example, that that could have would have told me, hey, you're going to be okay. That's what I really wanted, is for somebody to say, I see what you're going through, but you're going to be okay. And I think a lot of us, we're kicking ourselves in a foot right now, like, damn, I should have did this then, But the stigma of shame, that runs deep in us, man. And I'm talking about us. That
Yes.
shame thing runs deep in us, and goes back to what I said earlier about being your authentic self. We got to reach that point in our lives, to that we can really admit, you know, I'm not right, and I need to talk. I need to get this out, because if I don't, I'm going to hurt somebody or hurt myself. We need to take advantage of the resources that we have at our disposal now, because it's there. It's always been there, but we're in our own way. And I'm saying that from experience, because I was in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
You did what I'm saying?
I do, absolutely. I agree. The resources are more readily available than they have been in the past,
Mm-hmm.
but not but not everyone knows where to look for
Mm-hmm.
those resources. And I have to say, even as a therapist, trying to connect other people with therapists, because at this point I don't take one-on-one clients. So when I'm speaking, I often get people who are interested in therapy after hearing me speak. So I'm helping to walk them through the process of finding a therapist. And unfortunately, it's not as straightforward sometimes, because there are long wait lists, which can be frustrating. Insurance is not always everything we want it to be as far as behavioral health benefits. And sometimes it requires, and I tell people all the time, you may have to make multiple phone calls before you find someone that can get you on the calendar. The
Mm-hmm.
less picky you are,
Mm-hmm.
the more likely you will find someone that can get you in for therapy. But if you have a long list of prerequisites for the type of therapist, this age, and all that type of stuff, you may have to wait. Nowadays, it's not uncommon that you're 6 weeks out, depending on the area you live in, and
Mm-hmm.
how demanding the need is for
Mm-hmm.
therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And let's put therapists of color, and
Mm-hmm.
let's narrow that down to Black therapists.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where you live, here in Nebraska, the list is not as long as in some other communities. So people who
Yes.
are specifically saying, I want a Black therapist. And if we get to Black male therapists, the numbers get even smaller.
Smaller.
So I say that to say some people are ready, but they're having a hard time navigating the process. Because I'm always like, okay, are you willing to pay out of pocket? Because nowadays, some therapists don't accept insurance.
No. What?
Some
So
therapists don't accept insurance. It's private pay.
wow,
That's becoming more common.
paying out of pocket.
Well, that doesn't mean people can pay out of pocket, but it's becoming more common that therapists are accepting private pay only. So there are some barriers, but anyone who will listen to this, don't
Mm,
be discouraged by that,
mm-hmm,
because your healing is worth it.
mm,
Because we'll make a million phone calls to figure out something that has nothing to do with our mental health and well-being.
mm-hmm,
You know what
mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
We'll
yeah.
pick up the phone and make those phone calls if it's something, a luxury item that we want, that we have the money for. And here's one thing that I want people to keep in mind too. I hear people complain about therapy rates, but they're not complaining about shoe rates, right? They'll go and pay $200+ for a pair of shoes. But if a therapist says my rate is $200 a session, people are
Mm,
like, that's too expensive. So you're saying
mm,
to me that your mental health is not worth the investment?
mm,
Like, what would you need to give up in order to gain your mental health?
mm,
How many, if you think about it, how many times would you need to roll back going to fast food
mm, mm,
in
mm,
order to gain $200 to invest in your mental health? So before people get caught up on how dare therapists charge this rate,
mm-hmm,
not accept insurance, before you get caught up on that, I just want you to go in your bank account and look at all the things that you've spent money on that didn't do 1 ounce of good for your mental and emotional health, didn't do one
oh,
ounce of good for your physical or relational health, but
mm.
you freely opened your pocketbook and paid it. But I'll get off the soapbox on that one.
Oh no, hey, you stay on that soapbox because hey, somebody need to hear that. Somebody need to hear that because that's called fucked up priorities. And part of my choice of words, but hey, we having this conversation and let the truth be told. You got some fucked up priorities if you choosing to get those new pair of J's over your mental health. You know, you got a wall lined up full of $200+ shoes, but your mental health is taking a back burner because next month you want to go shopping again. Huh?
Something to keep in mind. Food for thought.
Food for thought. Your profile says that you are a mental health strategist. What does that mean?
Yep, a mental health strategist is basically anyone who is looking to roadmap how they can get from where they are to where they want to be mentally or emotionally, specifically in organizations. They would call me in. It's more like a consultant. It's
Mm,
just a fancier word than a consultant. They could bring me in, and this is something that I did with the military population as well. So they bring me in and say, hey, we want our organization to be more conducive to a mentally empowered culture. We want people to feel open, um, honest about their mental health. We want this to be a more calming, more relaxing environment. What can we do in order to make that happen? So they would bring me in and I could just help them roadmap some things that they can do, whether it's through programs, frameworks, resources.
mm,
One thing that I recommended when I was working with the military, they ended up having what they call was kind of like a serenity room. So it was just a calm room that the service members could go in and, to relax. So they painted the walls, they had games in there, refreshments, and it was a calming environment. And that is part of our mental health and well-being as well. If we are working in high stress environments, where can we go in that space? We can't just drive home, but where can we go in that space that's calming, relaxing, just to give our brains and our bodies a break? So that's mental health strategist is really just figuring out how can you create environments that are more conducive to mental health and well-being.
Hmm. And you talked earlier about working with vets uh, um, in terms of transitional and I guess learning to navigate the day to day of being in that environment. How was that experience like for you working with the vets?
I specifically work with active duty service members, and then for a limited amount of time, for example, if they were transitioning out of the military for whatever reason, for up to 6 months, they could still access our services.
Hmm.
So in that sense, yes, I was working with vets on a short-term basis as well as they were transitioning, and I absolutely love the work. It's not something that I imagined that I would do in my career, but actually learning about the military culture and working with that population, for over 10 years, I realized how demanding, first of all, the work is for so many, depending on what their job descriptions were,
Hmm.
and how so many hesitate to reach out for help because career advancement might be on the line. So that was something that was a real issue, which is why, thankfully, there were counselors like myself embedded in a lot of the squadrons, and embedded on the base. I specifically worked with the Air Force, but there were counselors who were non-medical in nature, which is the type of counselor that I was, non-medical, solution focused, and off the record. So the
Hmm.
goal was that more service members would be willing to reach out for help before things escalate, and before, not that there's anything wrong
Yeah.
with going the medical route, because if anyone were to come to us and things had escalated, and there was a diagnosable condition, then we would refer them to the base, hospital based therapists, psychiatrists, and things of that nature. But we were kind of the first line, like the first step. Come and speak to us, short-term non-medical, and then they could go from there if that was sufficient.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I absolutely love the work.
Good. And I'm sure that they benefited from you working with them.
I'd like to think so.
Uh, Talk about your book, The Journey Back to Self. What made
Yes.
you go on that road of creating your book?
So I have to tell you that this book,
Yeah, show it again.
here you
Journey
go.
Back to Self. All right.
The 1 year publication anniversary is coming up on Valentine's Day. So
That's what's up.
I don't know when this will be released, but February 14th, 2025, will be 1 year since I published this book, and the publication date was strategic. I wanted this book to be a love letter to other high achieving professional women who look the part, but
Mm,
on the inside, they're falling apart.
mm,
So I wrote this book because I don't believe in telling anyone else that they need to be authentic, open, and honest about their struggles if I'm not willing to do it myself. And for a lot of years, I was not willing to do it myself. I
mm.
helped other people do it, I celebrated them for doing it. But I bear shame as a therapist, Mark,
Man.
as a therapist, because I didn't have my stuff together. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, how am I a therapist and I'm not coping
Come on.
well with my stuff? I'm
Come
not
on.
coping well with my stress, my anxiety, my fears about failure. How am I a therapist? And I tell you, how that happens is because I'm a human being before I'm a therapist.
Mm,
I'm a human being before I'm a speaker. I'm a human being before I'm any other title. And when we start recognizing the beauty in that, that's not a burden. It's beautiful for us to have these human frailties, because that means that even in the emotional ups and downs, that means that we still can have growth. We still can have inner peace, power, and prosperity if we take the time to nurture those areas. Pain is giving us a sign that there's something that we need to pay attention to. It's not something to run away from. So my mental pain was actually reminding me that I needed to go back and pay attention to the things that had harmed me, and not pretend like they didn't happen, even though people in my family would have preferred that I did that. They would have preferred that I didn't write the book. They would have preferred that I keep my mouth shut and not be on stages talking about mental health awareness and my childhood trauma and my father not being in my life and domestic violence. They would prefer that I keep my mouth shut. But
Yes.
I am on a mission, and I know there's people out there who feel ashamed of what they went through. And I'm here to tell them that there's nothing wrong with you.
Nothing.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
There is a story of your life that has unfolded and continues to unfold, and you get to write the chapters. There is a time in my life that I didn't have control over my chapters.
Mm.
There were adults making decisions that were harmful to me.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
But I'm not responsible for what they did, but I am responsible for what I do right now. So that's where, when I'm working with adults, and this is adults specifically, I'm sharing with them that you have the pen in your hand. Now you decide what you're going to do with it and start writing these chapters. And I know we talk a lot about generational trauma, and I even hear some people calling it generational curses. I'm not a fan of that term
Mm.
because I when I hear that, I cringe a little bit, because a curse to me, it is something that's unshakable, right? It's
Yeah.
something that you're just birthed into
Yes.
this, and no matter what you do, you're cursed. I don't
Yes.
believe that.
It's over for you.
Trauma, you know,
It's a wrap.
so I understand why people use the term, but I think generational trauma is more appropriate because research has shown that trauma changes your DNA. So
Mm.
if a child is in the womb of a woman who is experiencing a great deal of stress,
Mm.
experiencing domestic violence, that is shifting and shaping how the baby is developing inside her womb.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Like, we don't understand that. Like,
Mm.
before you're in the world, what your mother is experiencing or has experienced, is stressing about, is worrying about, those things are affecting how you are growing inside the womb. So
Mm.
when we're talking about generational trauma, we're just not talking about this in theory. This has been studied.
This is real.
This is real. But
It's
guess what
real.
else is real?
Healing.
Generational healing. Come on. So
Mm.
there's some of us out here
Mm.
that we're on the battlefield for generational healing.
Come on now.
So, as strong as generational trauma, as strong as that is in the lineage, guess what else is strong? The possibility for generational healing. The question is, who's going to step up to the plate for that?
Mm.
So, just like whatever learned behaviors have been passed down, dysfunctional patterns have been passed down, we can pass down health, healing, and wholeness. Will we get it right the first time around? I doubt it.
Yeah.
But will our children have to heal less because we healed a little bit more? And will our grandchildren have to heal a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less? Come on. Now you looking, we looking 5, 6, 7, 8 generations down the road. People gonna be like, generational trauma, what?
Mm.
But we have
I
to
see healing.
decide.
I
Come
see
on.
happiness. I see peace.
Yes.
I see success. And
Yes.
success doesn't necessarily mean money.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't.
Not at all.
Mm-mm.
That's
Mm-mm.
what the world would tell us, though.
Right.
There's some worldly connections to success
Sure.
that are probably harming us more than they're helping us. But I believe, and I'm a woman of faith. I believe that we deserve both.
Why not?
I believe that we can have internal success and external success if we do so strategically, and
Mm-hmm.
if things are in their proper place.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Indeed.
That's what I'm going for anyway.
Hey, I'm right behind you. Don't leave me, man. Don't leave me. I'm right behind you. We're talking about generational trauma right now, and I'm speaking with therapist Alicia Caldwell. if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask of Miss Alicia while we're having this interview, please do so. Miss Alicia, I'm going to read off some statistics for you to put what you just said in context, and then I'm going to ask a question about that. All right, so check this out. An estimated 34 to 40% of Black women have experienced childhood sexual abuse. There's an estimated 8 out of 10 Black women have experienced some form of trauma. 8 out of 10. Here's another one. 61% of Black children in the U.S. have experienced at least one adverse childhood experience. And I'm going to add on to that. Some had adverse experiences before they were even born.
Or at birth, during birth. Birthing trauma is real.
Mm,
I
mm,
write about it in my book. We experienced
mm,
it personally.
mm,
Personally. So birthing trauma is real.
mm,
Even more likely among Black birthing people.
mm,
So
mm,
that's something that we have to recognize. And my hope is that we will get to a place where Black women are not 3 times as likely to die in childbirth
mm,
as white women. We
mm,
have to get real honest about what's happening with these things. I had heard about these things, Mark, but I didn't know my daughter was going to become a part of that birth trauma. And as her mother, I was traumatized by the experience myself.
mm.
So these things are happening, and I'm so grateful. And I'm going to get back to your question in a minute, but I don't want to miss this opportunity because there's going to be some Black women that listen to this. I am so grateful that we are in a position where my grandson, although his, birthing experience was traumatic, even though he was in the hospital with his mother as she recovered from her traumatic birthing experience, that he is being so surrounded by love
Mm,
that those wounds are already healed, that
mm,
he won't suffer any ill effects from those initial days and weeks of his life.
mm,
So the statistics that you shared is just further reason why your podcast is necessary. We need to have these numbers out there so women recognize, and others, not just women, but men as well. And if I can get more specific, can I just say Black women and men,
yeah,
Black boys and girls?
yeah.
Can we just let it be known that you are not alone?
Mm,
That the adversity that you have experienced or are experienced or are experiencing, that you are not alone. And
mm,
even though this may feel like it's the end of the road, or this may feel like it will never get better, that there is a thing called healing. And I wish I could tell you that the journey was going to be easy. I'm
mm,
not telling you that, but I want you to know that it's possible.
mm,
If you are willing to do the work, the process works. And that may mean that you have to partner with a professional, and there's no shame in that. It
yeah.
may mean that you have to ruffle some feathers in order to spread your wings and heal.
Mm,
And it
mm.
may mean that you're going to have to let go of some relationships because the person that you are becoming cannot stay in the place that you are.
Come on now.
Are you willing to give up some things so that you can step more fully into who you are designed to be?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Now, if you are ready to do the heavy lifting of that, that's where your mental muscles are going to be built. If it's easy, you're not growing. And if you're growing, it won't be easy. And
Mm,
my hope is that anybody who's listening to this and they're like, you know what?
mm,
My mental and emotional health is so wrecked, there's no hope for me. I'm just going to negate that for you right now. If you are still here, you are still breathing, there is hope. There is health and there is healing on the other side of one decision, and that's to choose you. I know that seems selfish, but I'm going to
Mm-mm.
say this, and I'm going to
Mm-mm.
pass the mic back to you.
Mm-mm.
When you are better, every person that you love, support, lead, they reap the benefits of you being healthier. They reap the benefits of you being healed. Think about your children.
Mm-hmm.
Do they want an unhealed version of you? Your healing, your self care, your prioritizing your wellness, that is helping your children. That is helping your spouse. That is helping your colleagues. It's helping how you show up in this world. It's helping your creativity. It's helping you write that book. It's helping you to write that song. It's helping you perform on that stage. Whatever dream that you have locked inside of you, only the healthiest version of you can do it at the fullest level. So if you think it's selfish, I'm going to tell you to rethink that,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
because when you're better, everybody else reaps the benefits.
You must have been on my show before, because everything that you said, to a certain extent, I said it, and I'll keep saying it. You have to be selfish in terms of self-care. You have to be selfish in regards of getting yourself better, because how can you help others when you're broken? You can't help anybody. It's like the glass half full versus the glass half empty perspective. I can't help nobody if my glass isn't full. I got to fill my cup, half full or half empty. I got to fill that thing. I can't depend on you to fill that. That's not your duty to do. That's mine. I got to fill this cup. And once my cup is full, I can pour some over to you. You dig? I can give
Mm-hmm.
some of this love to you, because you deserve that. You deserve my best. You deserve that. And I deserve my best. That's where people slip. They put out to everybody else, but they don't put into themselves. And it leaves them empty, mad, and bitter.
We could go on and on about this, but
And
I'm
yeah,
about to anytime
I'm gonna
that
switch it.
anytime there's a challenge, I'll go back to the origin story. Go back to how you witnessed the adults in your life as a child taking care of themselves. And again, I don't know about you, but I didn't witness any women in my life practicing self-care.
Mm,
If anything, they were in a chronic state of burnout. They were in a chronic state of trying to make ends meet. They were in a chronic state of trying to figure out how they could just make it through.
talk about that. Yes.
They weren't resting. They weren't self-caring.
Uh,
They weren't getting therapy. They weren't doing all of these things. So we grow up with a blueprint. And then even if we know better, we don't always have the capacity to do better yet. So we know that giving all of what's in our cup is not healthy, but we haven't learned a better way yet. So we keep doing that and we wonder why we're running on fumes.
mm-hmm.
But that's where these conversations are so important, because people will listen and say, there is another way. I
Mm,
have I haven't created the whole blueprint yet, but Mr. Mark Ross said that I gotta make sure my cup is full.
got it.
They get my overflow, but what's in the cup is for me. So it's just starting the conversation and helping people to recognize how valuable and important they are,
Mm-hmm.
because some people were never made to feel that way. If anything, they were last on the list.
Mm.
And now, as adults, they're manifesting that same reality, and they don't realize that they have the power to change the narrative.
I'm pausing because I'm letting all this sink in. not because I don't have a question to ask, because I have a few more, but I just want to marinate on what you said, because that's real. That's real. And more people need to hear that. More people need to hear that. And by the way, thank you for shouting me out like that. That was cool. I really appreciate it, because uh, I want to be in the business of helping others as you are. I want to use this platform to be a voice for the voiceless. I want to use this platform to let people know that they are not alone in their struggle. Because once upon a time, you and I thought that we were. Amen.
Amen.
We thought that we were. And so we were acting out, not even knowing that there are other people that were going through just as much stuff as we were. We need platforms like this.
Mm-hmm.
We
No
need
doubt.
conversations like this. I don't know if I told you this before, but I'll say this here. If you need my assistance to lend a voice, right, I'll be there.
Thank you.
I'll be there. Um, but let's shift gears a little bit, and I'm gonna get off my little soapbox. Talk about live like her. What is live like her?
Live like her. Um, it it really is what kicked off my desire to speak more openly and freely about the woman that I was and the journey to becoming the woman that I am today. And it was specifically designed for women leaders. And so as I was working with military populations, I would get women leaders coming into the office to meet with me. And these were highly decorated women, like really just knocking it out the park in their careers, but still having the mental and emotional challenges that they didn't feel they could speak about authentically and openly, and that was keeping them from healing fully. So, Live Like Her was really about shedding or putting a spotlight on the challenges that women leaders face, the challenge of looking good on the outside but being broken on the inside, and
Mm-hmm.
normalizing these conversations so these women would feel more comfortable sharing amongst other women leaders about their challenges and their struggles, and living like her, which is building the tools and the strategies and community to be healthy, empowered, and resilient. So that was the kickoff of that platform. So it really was just me hosting, workshops, webinars, content on social media, but it has evolved into me, speaking on stages and sharing space with other women and having really real and raw conversations about our mental, emotional, and relational health and what we can do collectively. Because I believe that we heal best in community with one another. We talk about isolation and loneliness. We talk about shame, embarrassment and the stigma. When we're in community with one another and one woman takes off the mask
Mm-hmm.
and shares openly, it is just wild to me the ripple effect that happens in a room.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll share my story and women will start sharing things that they have not shared. They will start this process right in front of other women because they feel more inspired and empowered to do it. Because if she can do it, I can do it too. And there is a holding of one another, just holding space. We're not coming up with solutions for each other. We're just empowering each other to come up with our own solutions and be the women that we were designed to be. So that was the kickoff for Live Like Her, and it is just something that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a woman. I have worked with many men, but I have a heart for high achieving, high power women again, because I want them to be just as healthy on the inside as they are on the outside.
Amen to that. What's next for you in your journey, Alicia?
You know what? This year in 2025, I am stepping more fully into this journey of authorship. I have to admit, in 2024, I published the book, but I didn't give it a whole lot of time and attention because I had other things on my plate. And a wise business coach that I met with not that long ago, he reminded me of how important it is for me to get this book in as many hands as possible, because although I can get on a stage and speak for 15, 30 minutes or an hour, that's all they will possibly get, but they'll have this book forever.
Mm,
They can reference this book at all stages of life. They may read one chapter this year, and in 5 years, they read it again, and it's something brand new because they're in a different developmental stage. Their relationship is different, their mental health is different. So I was reminded how important it is for me to lead as an author and let all the other things kind of be branches of this authorship journey. So that's what 2025 is going to hold for me. I'm going to continue to speak in workplaces and keep on foot stomping.
all right.
Mental health and wellness in the workplace. We don't have to wait till we get home. We don't have to wait until we take vacation to take care of ourselves. There are
Mm-hmm.
things that we can do in the workplace to be well, and I
Mm,
want to be a voice for that.
mm-hmm. Okay. How can people reach you?
The best way to reach me, um, I have to admit, I'm not I don't live on social media, but if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can do that. You can reach me. It's the Alicia Caldwell on LinkedIn. Same on Instagram, the Alicia Caldwell. But the best way to stay connected is to get on my email list at thealiciacaldwell.com. Join my email list, because if you're like me and you don't like being on social media, especially right now, because there's a lot being posted that
Mm,
can disrupt your peace,
mm,
get on my email list at thealiciacaldwell.com. You'll get a monthly newsletter, and you'll be the first to know about, workshops I have going on, giveaways of my book, and all the other things.
okay. Okay. I will share your email on my YouTube channel once I get this edited and put out there. So I'll do
Perfect.
that. I'll do that for you. So, Miss Alicia Caldwell, thank you for taking the time to speak with me on my platform about what you do and the powerful impact that you are making with what you do. Greatly appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Ross, and this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Remember, self-care is important. So please make your physical health and your mental health a priority every day and do it first. Good night, everyone, and good night, Miss Caldwell. Take care now.